Portsmouth Book Award people, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you a million times. I am so proud to be the owner of this award from you guys. It means so much, I can barely articulate it. I don't know if you know, some of you definitely will, but I went to school in Portsmouth. I grew up there, spent all my teenage years there. And in fact, I went to school that was called St Luke's, which is now Charter Academy. And I did not cover myself in glory when I was there. In fact, I got banned from the school library. So thanks, Ms. Cohen, for letting me back in. Because books actually have been a huge part of my life, and I now surround myself with them because I can, basically. So I have a few questions from you guys about my book Beauty Sleep. Charter Academy questions first, I think we will do, as you are my old school. What inspired me to write this book? Well, I was inspired to write this book by a number of things. That usually happens in my stories. Those of you who have read it, which obviously is quite a lot of you because you voted for it, will know that it covers quite a lot of topics. Look, I talk about medical ethics, I talk about beauty standards, homelessness, issues of class. There's a lot in this story, but actually what really pushed me into writing it the way I did is about 5 years ago, there was a young woman who was 15 years old and sadly she was dying of cancer. And she went to court to ask for permission to be cryogenically frozen. That is a thing that people can do. And she got permission. So that young lady somewhere in this country is currently in a cryogenic stasis. And maybe one day she will be revived. And what will she make of the world that she lands in? How different will it be to the world that we're in right now? And of course, my main character was frozen in 1986, which was when I basically was in what we used to call it year 5 then. I think you call it year 11 now, at school. Massive difference between 1986 and the world that Laura finds herself in when she wakes up. Second question, what do I like about the book? Well, I love the cover, that's for sure. It's so beautiful and shiny. Matches my hair, which I've done specially for you guys today. Forgive my roots, lockdown hair. What else do I like about the book? I love how it's been received by schools and young people who are reading it. People really seem to connect with it. And I really like my characters, Shem and Laura, and actually Susan makes me laugh like a train. She's hilarious. Third question, what would I change about the book? Well, I'm a big tweaker of things, but in all honesty, I'm pretty happy with this book the way it is. I think if I read it, I'd be like, oh no, cringe. I'd change that. So I'm not going to do that because I can't change it. It's published now, so my hand is out of it. Next question. Is this story based on a true story that has been fantasized? Well, a little bit, like I said about that young girl. And actually, there's health, well, they call it health treatment. I do not buy into this, where you can go and you can put yourself in a pod up to your neck and they freeze your body. And I think it's meant to freeze your fat off or something. And yeah, no, weird health things, no. So yeah, I wound that into the story. So a lot of it is based in reality, and the world that I create is very much based, got one foot in our decade right now. Is this my most successful book that I've written? Actually, no, it's not, but it's early days. My first book, More of Me, was nominated for something called the Carnegie Medal, and that is voted for by librarians. It's very, very prestigious, and I was over the moon about that. And I've also sold movie rights for More of Me, but it's early days for this book, so let's see. Who knows? There could be more deals in the future. Who knows? What is my opinion on the votes? Oh, well, I don't know a lot about the votes, but if you're talking about the votes for this book, I have to say one of the reasons I was so surprised to win this, and I am sorry, boys, I have done you a massive disservice, is I genuinely thought boys would be put off this book because of the cover. And that initially made me think, oh, we should do something more generic. But you consistently prove me wrong. I mean, it's not a girl's book or a boy's book. It's just a really good story. And you guys have proven that that is what matters. And maybe also, boys, you just really like the cover too. I mean, who wouldn't? It's gorgeous. Right, we've got some questions for St Edmunds now. What was my motivation to write Beauty Sleep? Well, the main motivation was having spent 15 years trying to get published and having had a very successful debut book, More of Me, I needed to write another book. I needed to get another book out there. So that really drove me to try and get that book finished. But also at the heart of it, I really wanted to explore this idea about how our different worlds affect us when we're growing up. So how different life was for me when I was growing up to how life is like, what life is like for you now growing up. And also in the book, how different it is for Shem, who's got absolutely nothing, no money, nothing at all. And Laura, who finds herself in this world of plenty, which is alien to her. And she's kind of got to get used to that too. So that was a big driver in writing this story. Does my book include any of your own personal experiences? Yes! I was a massive, massive David Bowie fan, and I had a huge, huge crush on John Taylor. I still do. Don't tell my husband. So yeah, all of that, and The Cure. I love those bands, so to be able to write about them was just a dream. And of course, I draw on my own experience when I'm writing character, because that's how you get depth of emotion, trying to remember how certain things felt like to you. And I think all writers do that to some extent. If you want to write something that's realistic, you have to plumb those depths and look at your own life experience. Okay. Third question from St Edmunds. Who inspired you to write dystopian themed books? Well, the truth is, that happened by accident. I thought I would write picture books. And then I thought, well, picture books are really hard. Believe me, they're short, but really difficult to do. So maybe I'd try a middle grade book. No. Turns out what happened was all the books I read through my life, like contemporary fiction, stories about relationships. I read a lot of classics that sort of look at the dynamics in families. Then I read loads of sci-fi, like everything I could get my hands on, from Aldous Huxley to George Orwell's 1984. Obviously obsessed with Doctor Who when I was growing up. And a tiny bit of horror as well. I read Stephen King and then had to stop doing that because basically I could not sleep. But all of that mixed up inside me. And once I let go and stopped trying to write the books I thought people wanted me to write and wrote what was inside me, it comes out in this weird book soup concoction that I seem to write. Question number 5 from St Edmunds. Were any of your characters based on people you've met in real life? Okay, don't tell anyone this, okay? But Susan, yeah, you know, she obsessed with vegetables and random sayings. She's basically based on one of the wonderful people at my hairdressers. She does know that. I told her, I love you, Kate, but you are completely dippy. Would you ever write a sequel to Beauty Sleep? Do you know, I don't think I would. I don't tend to go back to things. I never have been back to my university. I've been back to my school, but that's in very different circumstances. I'm not a big fan of reunions. I kind of think I told the story that I wanted to tell, and it's done. What inspired me to become an author? Well, truth is, I wanted to be an actor, and that was a really difficult thing to do. When you also meet someone who wants to settle down, and I run a farm with my husband, so it's quite hard to fit acting in around that. I did do a little bit of acting in my life, but it was very hard to pursue a career. And I love working on the farm, being a farmer's wife for the most part, but I really missed something for me. So I started writing, and it took me a long time because I didn't know how to do it. But eventually I learned how to do it, and yeah, here we are. I think this is our last question. Why did you write a book about freezing people and defrosting them in the future? Well, I've sort of explained that, I think, in the earlier question about why I wanted to write about a young girl who did that. But also, it is a really good tool. I find that the kind of books I write, sort of science fiction books, that ability to use basically time travel, isn't it? To look at two different eras in time is really, really useful and fun way to write. And yeah, it's fun. Got one last question. Am I currently writing a book? And if so, what is it about? I'm always writing a book. I had this idea that I'd write the next book really quickly, and I thought I'd do it in a year. Yeah, because a year sounds like a long time to me, but trust me, that is very fast in terms of book world. Can't do it. I cannot do it. It's nearly finished now. It's called Yellow for a Boy. It's it's about two kids who are growing up on an island where the women have all the privilege. So they have the babies and then they go back to work and the men stay home and look after the kids. So life is very different on this island for them. The boys are expected to learn all the domestic chores and the women get to do all the going out to work and being powerful. They run the church, all of that kind of stuff. And then halfway through the book, they find out that their world is not real and they have to go and live in a real world where everything is the other way around. And it's how they all cope in that new environment, or indeed don't cope in that new environment. So keep your fingers crossed that I get it finished. Maybe in a year's time I'll have another book for you to read. Thank you so much. I've got one last thing to do before we go because I'm not with you. You can't hand me my award. But this is definitely a crown moment, I think. I have the crown. Any excuse to wear it. Basically, it's out. Here we are. Here's my award. Thank you so much. Keep reading. I hope I get to meet some of you soon. Thanks again. Bye bye.